Well, all right, people. So I'm here with your Wrestlemania Night 2 review. Basically, to sum it up, a bunch of mediocrity with a lot of great surprises at the end. So I'm just going to get right into the review. So first we got Stephanie McMahon coming out to cut a promo. Let's not forget, Stephanie McMahon was center of one of the most boring storylines of the PG era, being the Authority storyline about 10 years ago, coming out for 20 fucking minutes every Monday with Triple H cutting horrible ass boring promos. But she says the same thing Triple H said, which it's a start of the new era, the Triple H era. Like, they're trying to create a new era because the last 10 or 15 years of WWE have been absolute dog shit. So now they're trying to say yeah, we were shit, but now we're going to get better, apparently, which there hasn't been any great improvement in my opinion. But they're trying to call it the Triple H era. It's funny, the names of the era have never been about one singular person. It's always, it's not about, and let alone a person that's not even a talent on the show. You don't say oh, it was the Steve Austin era or the Johnson. It's just general names, So it's weird to call it after the main booker or whatever the fuck they call, or whatever the fuck. I don't even know if anybody 100% knows what Triple H actually does in the company. So I was not happy to see Stephanie. I've never been a big Stephanie fan. If it wasn't for her being the daughter of Vince McMahon, she would be a nobody. Then we get the first match of the night. It's McIntyre defeating Rollins. And this is going to be the same thing I actually got notes this time, people. I got some notes. This is going to be the same thing I talked about yesterday. The fact that you have 3 curb stomps and you have 4 claymores, I believe it was, in the match. What's the point of even calling it a finisher? I don't mind having somebody in a WrestleMania match kick out of 1 finisher, but to kick out of 3 or 4, it's a little bit ridiculous. You actually had a spot where McIntyre gets curb stomped on the table. Rollins throws him back into the ring, and he's back on his feet in 10 seconds. It's what the fuck are we doing? It's you might as well just run him over with the truck, and then he gets back up in 15 seconds, So then you had McIntyre win, It was an all right, decent match. But again, in my opinion, these excessive finishers really take away from the quality and the believability of the match for me. So it was a decent match. Nothing great. It's not a 5-star or a 4-star match. It's a 2.75, 3-star out of 5 match. And then McIntyre wins, and then he gets on the table and he's climbing towards CM Punk. He's in some Pornhub video or something. I mean, it looked very sexual and very awkward, but he starts climbing towards Punk, and then he gets on his knees. He's about to suck some dick or something. I mean, it seriously reminded me of a Pornhub video or a sex scene in a movie. I mean, I'm what the fuck is about to happen? But then, CM Punk attacks him, and then Damian Priest comes down and cashes in. Damian Priest, I mean, really, that's your world fucking champion? A fucking emo goofball, Damian Priest? I mean, what, again? And then you see, the current champ, Seth Rollins, who I've always been a fan of Seth Rollins. I don't know if he's, world championship, big star material. I think he's talented. I don't know if he's at that level. But just watching Rollins come down during his entrance, with 30 fucking goofballs dressed up like idiots dancing around him. I'm this is our world champion. This is our world heavyweight champion. I mean, again, they got to do better to build new stars. And this is not how you do it. You can't have your world champion looking like this. Same thing with Damian Priest. I mean, I think McIntyre is decent from what I've seen, but these 2 goofballs, I mean, you just can't take them seriously. So, I mean, it was a decent match. Then you have the Extreme Rules match, probably the worst match of the night. I'll give it 1.5 out of 5 stars. I would have given it 2 out of 5 stars, but Snoop Dogg was just fucking terrible. Totally. I mean, why do they got to bring him back for every WrestleMania? I get he's a wrestling fan. Don't mean you got to fucking bring him back. He was talking nonsense on commentary, probably smoked a shit ton of weed in the back before he came out. There was a couple decent spots, but just a throwaway match. You had LA Knight defeat AJ Styles. Some good spots, some good counters. Decent match. Going to give it 2.75 out of 5 stars. AJ Styles, I don't know why they took away his theme song. I loved his theme song, but they gave him a new theme song. Like, why? He seemed like he's falling off a cliff. When he first came to WWE, he was in some great storylines, great matches. Now it's like he's a lower mid-carder. I told you guys LA Knight's a goofball. I told you guys he would be a mid-carder. You know, when we were here, oh, it's LA Knight, 6 to 8 months ago. I told you guys in 6 months he's going to be a mid-carder. That's exactly what he is. He's not in the main event. He's in a mid-card match. Then you had Logan Paul defeating Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Another decent match. This is what I felt like WrestleMania was filled with. A bunch of like three out of 5 star matches. Like, nothing great, but nothing terrible. You expect a little bit more out of WrestleMania than just average to decent matches. But yeah, it was a decent match. They did a good job of getting some like actual heat on Logan Paul, I thought, with the brass knuckles and with the goofball and the Prime mascot thing, whatever the fuck. So, you know, it was probably another like 3 out of 5 star match. You know, pretty fast paced. I think, I'll say Logan Paul, I think he makes for a good heel for what it's worth. I'm not a big fan of him, as many people are. I'm not a big fan of the part-time bullshit, but, you know, he does make for a decent heel with his podcast and the character and everything like that, I think. I didn't watch a Divas match. Can't rate that one. I don't give a fuck about... I hardly give a fuck about the male wrestling, so, you know, the Divas wrestling, you know... I mean, when they pile you on with hours and hours and hours of, like, bullshit, you can hardly watch it. But then you had the main event, I'm sure the only match anybody cared about. And throughout the whole WrestleMania, this is the only thing anybody cared about was the Bloodline shit. Everything else was honestly, like, throwaway, was extra, was just filler. This is the only thing anybody cared about. But this last match was a really great match. I'm not going to say, oh, it's awesome, it's 5 stars. No, I don't, you know, you can't really give anything 5 stars. Like, you know, 5 stars is like perfection. It was a really great match, though. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. You had some good wrestling. Wouldn't say it was great wrestling, but you had good wrestling. And then at the end, but you have 2 caveats here, and I'm going to get to those at the end. And you had, trying to think of who came back. The Rock comes back. John Cena comes. That was a surprise. So it was nice to actually get like a legitimate WrestleMania surprise and some big names at WrestleMania. That was really cool to see John Cena and The Rock face off. See The Rock, give him the rock bottom. Undertaker comes back. That was epic. No doubt about it. Gives a choke slam to The Rock. That was awesome. I was marking out for sure. And then, you know, Cody Rhodes, you know, finally goes over. You also had, you know, Seth Rollins come out, Solo Sikoa come out, you know, but really the headline was seeing John Cena and The Rock. So a really great match. But again, let's get to the caveats. Caveat number 1 is the shame is you got to bring back, again, I keep saying this, but you got to bring back guys like this to get pops and to get great, you know, great shit on at WrestleMania. You cannot resort to the guys that you have on the card to give you good shit. You got to pull back and you got to go back to the well again and get people like Undertaker, people like Cena, the big names of the Ruthless Aggression era and the big names of the Attitude era. Again, we just heard, oh, this is a Triple H era. If this is a Triple H era, why do we got to go back in time to people like The Rock, people like Cena, people like Undertaker to get ratings? You know? And again, besides the shit that The Rock was involved with, everything else was really like, who gives a fuck, you know? And then caveat number 2 is Cody Rhodes. I'm not a Cody Rhodes hater. I don't think he sucks, but I don't think he's main event material. I don't think he's a top star. He might become a top star, but, you know, last night he was getting booed a little bit, not a ton. Not as much as Roman Reigns was when he was on his babyface run, but Cody Rhodes was getting booed a lot. I do think, you know, they are pushing him down our throats artificially, just like they did people like Roman Reigns and John Cena in the PG era. So I don't think he's worthy of but it does take somebody of a very, very high caliber to take the belt off of Roman Reigns after 1,300 days. But I think he's a little bit away from being a main event material. He might never get there. He might get there. I'm not saying he's terrible, but I just don't. To me, he's not main event material. He's a good wrestler. He's a talented wrestler, but again, and the reason I say that is you look at how great The Rock's been over the last 2 months, and then you compare it to Cody Rhodes. I said in my video last night, Cody Rhodes and like Seth Rollins, they're so far away from the charisma of The Rock. And that's been evident over the last 2 months. So if Cody Rhodes can, like I said, The Rock's an A, Cody Rhodes is like a C minus. If Cody Rhodes can elevate himself to like a B on that scale, then maybe he's, worthy. But I still think he's, a little bit away from that. So to really summarize this WrestleMania, the only thing that I gave a fuck about, honestly, was the bloodline shit. Everything else, again, was throwaway. And it comes back to the same point that I seem to always get to. Is this company cannot build up new stars. It can't build up new talent. They can't create any new talent. So we hear about, the Triple H era, Triple H. Where are the new stars? Maybe Cody Rhodes will be a new star. Maybe he won't. We got to wait and see. But, overall, it was, I would say, an average WrestleMania. I would give it 5 out of 10 stars. You had some good shit with The Rock and the Bloodline storyline. But again, they got to resort back to Attitude Era stars to get ratings. And then everything else was just kind of felt like filler. Felt like a match that you would see on Raw or a average pay-per-view. So there you go, people. There's my thoughts on WrestleMania Night 2 and WrestleMania as a whole.